Welcome to Go with Kyle Harbaugh.
Hello and welcome to Go with Kyle Harbaugh. By combining traditional business building methods with AI, Kyle helps law firms, financial advisors, and a variety of businesses thrive in a changing world to build personalized roadmaps to success. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is Metrics That Matter: How to Measure Success in Law Office Performance. Kyle, good to see you.
I'm excited, Kevin, to talk to you today about metrics that are going to help law firms grow and operate better. Now, there's a whole bunch of different metrics that you could track. For instance, our Step AI system, it uses over 650 different metrics. It's very data driven. And so there's a lot of important metrics, and some are going to be more important than others. Depending on your practice area, the area of law that you're in, depending on your business, certain things are going to make more sense for you to track. We're going to talk about three that are kind of going to be a golden ticket for you, something that you're going to be able to use throughout any part of your business, whether you're a small law firm, medium size, or one of the big law firms. So that's CAC, or cost to acquire a customer, churn, and lifetime gross profit, or LTGP. Now, LTGP, sometimes it's confused with lifetime value. Those are very similar. They're oftentimes thrown around as the same thing, but they're not quite the same. So lifetime gross profit speaks to your margin and how much each customer is worth in terms of margin. Lifetime value is overall how much money do they spend, but not all the money that you get from a client is going to be profit. It's going to be
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's run through these real quick. So, a lot of lawyers, they didn't go to business school. They don't know what these things might be. So CAC, cost to acquire a customer, what that is what something cost, or how much does it cost you to get a customer? And that's the marketing spend, so any kind of ad spend, but also the people to bring them in. So the sales team, any kind of other creative people that are working on your marketing campaign, all the marketing costs associated with actually running those ads and bringing those customers in and converting them to clients. So that's cost to acquire a customer,
which can be high. I mean, there can be a lot of people and a lot of things involved in that process.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. And it's important to note that it's more than just your marketing spend.
Right.
And then the next one is churn. So that's just a jargon term for how fast does a client leave your business. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if you have a client, if normally clients stay 10 months and their case concludes on average in 10 months, and then they leave your business, you would have a churn rate of 10%. Another way to calculate this is if you look at how many clients you have at the beginning of the month, and then not including clients you acquired during that month, just the clients that you counted to begin with, how many of those are left over? So for instance, if you had 25 clients and 2 of them left and you were left with 23 at the end of the month, you'd have an 8% churn.
Okay.
And then lifetime gross profit, that is a metric so you can understand how much money is going to be spent, how much money you're going to earn from each client. So each client, let's say in our example, they stay for 10 months, and on average, they pay $1,250 every month. And that means over the lifetime of that client, the lifetime value, it's going to be $12,500 that they're going to spend within your business. Now, let's say service delivery is going to eat up some of that revenue that you received. Let's say service delivery costs you $4,500 over the course of that client's lifetime. You'd have $8,000 worth of gross profit for each client that you bring into your business.
Okay.
So why that's really important is if you know these metrics, if you know your lifetime gross profit and you know your CAC, you can know if I put, let's say I spend $1,000 to get a client, and then over the lifetime of that client, they're going to bring me $8,000. I can just keep pushing money through the system on my marketing and get a 1 to 8 return.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm not good at math, but that actually works. I can see where you're going with that. Yeah. And it's interesting. Churn is something we hear a lot, and I think sometimes it can be misunderstood. I know I've misunderstood it in the past, but it's actually a lot simpler than probably people think. It really is just about, do you decide how long of a time period in there, or is it usually yearly, or how does that usually calculate?
Yeah, so you can calculate it month by month, or for longer cycles, it might, maybe your cases run longer. I know some case cycles, they're over a year. So it just depends. You got to look at your data and see what makes sense for your clients. I know some people that they've shifted away from longer litigation to shorter type matters that they can work through much more quickly, and they do a higher volume of shorter cases. So part of this is understanding who your client is and how long those cases last, and really understanding your data so that you can get a baseline and then start making adjustments and figuring out where there's opportunities to fine tune things and get better.
How have you seen a focus on metrics transform the way law firms operate?
Not tracking the right thing can, that's a distraction. And then a lot of times I see people, they're not tracking enough or they're not tracking at all. They're kind of just flying by the seat of their pants. So, there's a lot of things to keep track of. There's a lot of things that you need to put in your vocabulary. For instance, your close ratio, that's a really important one we talked about a couple episodes ago. There's a whole bunch of sales metrics that you could look at, like your time, your speed to lead. So how long does it take for that client or that potential client to actually receive a phone call once they make contact with your firm, things of that nature. But then you also need to figure out what your return on ad spend is, or ROAS. So there's a whole bunch of different metrics that you need to keep track of, and you need to be able to analyze those and understand them. Because if you don't have baselines, if you're not tracking these things, you can't make adjustments and know if it actually improved or worsened your state.
And these are things like, but especially, using, specifically talking about lawyers, this is just not their wheelhouse. Like you said, a lot of them didn't go to business school, or certainly didn't go to marketing school, or take marketing classes. I mean, how can a lawyer or a law firm get better at the metrics, even if it seems kind of like a daunting task?
You got to have systems that track, or you got to be tracking it manually. Or in the instance of like your client satisfaction, you need to survey them. You need to ask them, what they think, how you could get better, where things didn't go so well, and really ask for that feedback. I really like questionnaires, but better than questionnaires are interviews. So if you're, looking for the data, you can find it. If you're having trouble, definitely give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk it through with you and help you figure out what you need to measure that will really matter.
What other metrics, as far as client satisfaction and outcomes, do you feel are important?
Yeah, so you need to look at who your clientele is, understand things like who referred them. And, maybe you look at, well, this person is referring a bunch of cases our way. We should continue to build this relationship. Or we have this one relationship and they're not sending anybody to us. We send referrals to them. They don't send anything to us. Maybe we need to shift things and refer to somebody who's going to refer cases our way. Mm-hmm. So kind of track everything is what I would say. But if you can identify who your best client is, who's made you the most money, what cases are the easiest to work on, they're not calling your office, they're not really needy, they understand the process. Maybe you want to focus on them. Maybe you want to focus on somebody who's going to be easier to service and who's going to pay you better. They're paid their bill on time. And market to more of those people, figure out what zip codes they come from, what's important to them, what kind of TV shows they watch, who they vote for. These are all things that you could figure out more effectively who that demographic is, and then who to speak to more, where to market and be more targeted, so you can have more targeted ad spend, and then get a bigger profit. And I've seen businesses 3-4x their revenue doing this, because they're much more targeted and they know the best people to attract in their business.
That's some serious data deep dive TV shows that people watch.
I mean, you can go pretty deep with it. And like I said, one of a really great practice is to figure out maybe there's something that you do that you don't even know you're doing. And a good way to figure that out is interview them.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And obviously, like most industries, the legal landscape constantly evolving. How should law firms adapt their metrics and performance measures to stay relevant, to stay competitive in such a largely rapidly changing environment?
Yeah, well, you can always look at expanding your services or having upsells or downsells, depending. You can figure out ways to extend that client lifetime value. So maybe a subscription model is a good way to get that. The other thing you could look at is figuring out how to reduce your cost to acquire a customer. Mm-hmm. So those are all different things you can play with to either lower the one number, your CAC, or raise up the lifetime gross profit, and you're going to get more money as a result.
And I think the important takeaway is it's the data. The data doesn't lie, and if you can get the data together, you can compile it and you can see what's going on. That's when you can make these decisions about what the CAC shows and what the lifetime profit shows, and how to balance all that.
That's right.
And is that something? Is it something that people get better at? Because I could see that being kind of intimidating for someone out the gate.
Yeah, I mean, this is the basics. I'll just say that it's nothing crazy. It's not calculus. It's it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It's nothing too crazy. You do need to think about it, and I would say it like this: if you're not going to do it, pay somebody to do it. Mm-hmm. But these are really the basics, and you need to think in these terms and have these things in your vocabulary, because this is how you're going to get a $10 million law firm.
Mm-hmm. Finally, if you could provide one piece of advice to law firms struggling to utilize metrics effectively, what would it be? And then if you could also give us a practical first step to take towards measuring success.
Yeah, I would say just start asking questions. Start looking at the data you already have. Like if you have an established book of business, go look at your clients and look who brought you the most money, who paid their bill on time. Maybe they paid really well, but they were a huge drain on the firm because they were always calling in. They were giving you a lot of trouble. They filed a bar complaint. Well, then we don't want more of those people. So start small. Just look at the data that you can get, and then begin to expand out and understand more of your data. And if you need help, give me a call.
And what kind of things do you go over in that first call, that first time you talk to someone? What are the kind of things that you would like to see them have prepared that can help facilitate a good conversation between you two?
Yeah, it depends. The lawyer answer, it depends.
Yeah, you know the lawyer answer. That's great.
That's right. So it depends on what their struggle is. For instance, if they're having recruitment problems, I would say, like, how often do employees turn over, or how many employees have you turned over in the last year, or something like that. I mean, that could be a significant risk that they need to really figure out how to get a better hiring process. If they're dealing with the marketing not working, well, it might not be the marketing itself. It could actually be that nobody's picking up the phone, or their intake process or the sales process isn't very, very good. And so there's a few different pieces there that it might not be the issue that you think it is. And you need to be open to that you need to be open to the idea that the problem that you're coming to me with may not actually be the problem that we need to solve.
Great point. Definitely. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Go with Kyle Harbaugh. To connect with Kyle, visit chiefgoofficers.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Kyle, really appreciate the time and all the insight. Really, really interesting stuff for sure.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad to share my knowledge.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.